Bob, it's so great to see you. We're at G-Man. We're actually on the north side today, and I want to thank Joe Shanahan for giving us this beautiful room to have a nice chat with an old friend. And I guess as we get started, I have to give you a couple things. And for people listening, they're not going to see it, but you came in with a hat that had a C on it, and we're going to give you a hat that's got an SOX on it.
It's a beauty. Oh my God. What's going to happen? Am I going to get rocks thrown at me when I step out of this building? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is bend the brim.
Yeah, you got to do that. And then we also have a really cool pinstripe jersey.
Oh, it's a beauty.
With Odenkirk and number 1
on
the
back.
I love it.
Can I wear it tonight to the Cubs game?
Yeah. Absolutely you can. You get to do it once.
So I feel like we're getting...
I love it. It's great. Thanks, man.
We're getting you back to your roots a little bit, right?
It's true. Started with the Sox. Yeah. I started with the Sox because my grandfather grew up 4 blocks from Comiskey. He saw Babe Ruth play there. And he took us there, and we saw, Harry Carey was there at the time. And it was great. Great old stadium. Yeah.
Do you remember how old you were the first time you went?
Probably 8 or 9. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I did the math on that. It was around 9 years old because I was going off when Harry was there. Harry was only there for like 2 years, right?
He was there for maybe 8 or 9 years,
oh, okay.
I think. Yeah.
When did he finish up?
So 81 was his last year, I think 82.
Oh, yeah, because he was there for Disco Demolition.
He was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was about 10 or 11, yeah. And we went more than once, but and we sat underneath Harry's booth. I don't know why we got those tickets, but we would get those tickets. And he would drop down the net with the things to sign. Yeah.
So what happened?
What happened?
To your White Sox fandom?
What happened to my grandfather's White Sox fandom? He lived in Oak Park, and he started watching the Cubs, and then he only watched the Cubs. And he sort of made Cubs fans out of other family members. I think what happened was the Cubs were easy to watch on WGN. And also the reception was better because White Sox were on, was it WFLD?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and it was just not great reception. Even in Naperville, we would have, that came in okay, but not great.
Right.
And WGN was just easier.
So this is all about vertical
it's very
hold?
strange. I don't know. I'll be honest. It's all about vertical hold. I'll be honest, though. I'm not sure my grandfather didn't also root for the Sox somehow. I think he did. He grew up there near the stadium. He went there as a kid. I don't know why he was watching every Cubs game, but I think it was just the ease of it. And the afternoon games. At the time, it was only afternoon games. And then you can stay awake for the whole thing if you're, 80 years old.
So Disco Demolition, were you watching on television?
I was watching on television. Sadly, I was not a part of the chaos. It did look like someone would die there, though, didn't it? And if you show someone a few seconds of footage and you say 5 people died, they'll believe you. I wrote a movie about Disco Demolition, and it did not sell yet.
Hasn't sold yet.
Yeah,
hasn't sold yet. That's movies, man.
Right.
Hey, man, 10 years, that's nothing.
So what was the plot?
We were telling the story of a kid, and he gets swept up in it and goes, and it's a great summer. It's just a summer movie for, it's like Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like that, but with Disco Demolition. And it tells Steve's story, too. Steve Dahl's story, because at least told from Steve's point of view, it's pretty funny and very likable. Of course, Steve thought no one would show up. And he was sure no one would show up. And he would look like a fool just in an empty stadium yelling at no one. And they were completely unprepared for what happened.
They were turning people away, right?
Oh, well, eventually they didn't turn people away. I guess they just let the floodgates open because they couldn't keep them back. And my favorite little twist is that there were too many explosives. I mean, by far too much. And that the guy who did it was an ex-vet. It was a Vietnam vet who did explosives in Vietnam. And he just way packed it with way too much power, which you can see if you watch it. You're like, that was unnecessary. And the crater it left, I mean, who thought? He didn't adjust the explosives for how many record albums he had. He just put that many in. He was going to blow that whole, no matter what happened. And I love that. I love the Mike Veck, Bill Veck's son was the guy who made it happen with Steve. And they were both in their 20s, right? 24, 27 at the oldest. I mean, 20-year-olds shouldn't be given complete free rein to organize anything called a demolition in a public space, or not a public space, but a well-attended space.
I do want to make one serious point, because Steve is a friend of mine, a friend of yours.
Yeah.
And there were some cultural things attached to what happened that
Yes.
really is not true, and it was not intended. I mean,
Yeah.
he was a 24-year-old disc jockey.
Yeah.
It was a radio bit.
Yes.
And the Disco Sucks thing was kind of, I wouldn't say it was totally tongue-in-cheek. I mean, but he was a rock guy, and
I think
was a
that
bit.
it's a lot. What's some things that are lost in the look back and in the distant look that many critics had of it, is that Steve was fired from a previous radio station because it went all disco. So he left on a Friday, and on Monday morning he showed up, and they said, "We're all disco now. Play disco music all through your whole show." And he said, "I don't want to. I don't like that." And he talked more than he played anything anyways. But so there was a personal grudge against this thing that took over. I also think it's a little hard for maybe people from a distance to see that, I've talked to people who were our age and they grew up in New York and LA, and they did love disco music. It was a fad that caught on very strongly with all strata of society in New York and LA. It seems to me, from the people I've talked to, that it didn't catch on here. It was forced on us more. That's what it felt like to me. And it was normal because the record company offices are in New York and LA. So they just think our kids are going to disco, so the kids in the Midwest must want disco. And so they're going to listen to disco. That's all we're going to give them now, because that's what they want. When it's like, nowadays, the feedback from an audience is so much more, there's so much more of it. Like, they know what the difference between what kids in Atlanta are listening to versus kids in Chicago versus kids in New York. Back then, if it was hitting big in New York and LA, it was just assumed that it was gonna hit big in Chicago, and that the people of Chicago and everywhere else would just love this thing, whatever it was. And that's just not really true when it comes to things like music and stuff. So even if, just imagine a station being all disco. I know if you have satellite radio, you have an all disco station, and good for you. Maybe you stop in there once in a while. But think about, you've only got probably like 3 rock stations, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got one of them's your favorite, and then they are just playing disco in the morning. You should not play disco in the morning unless you're working out. Anyway, there are a lot of sides to it that get lost in that critique that you're talking about, Len, where people say it was anti-gay, anti-black. And it just never felt, from our point of view, it felt like, no, you pushed this music on us and we didn't choose it. And why do we have to? We don't like it. I mean, we were dying for punk rock, really. I couldn't wait until a few years later the Replacements came along, and then that was my band. So yes, you're right. There's this, there are undercurrents to it that I also, like you, reject. I get how people perceive it that way from outside, but for me, that wasn't a part of it. You know, Steve Dahl did a funny disco, do you think I'm disco song?
Right.
And it wasn't homophobic. It wasn't remotely racist. You know, it was a shitty, skeevy guy who was on coke, hitting on women in the crudest, greasiest way. You know, so that's how we perceived it. We didn't perceive it with those other dimensions, but oh well.
So if all disco wasn't a hit in Naperville,
Yeah.
what else was playing in Naperville when you were growing up?
What was I listening to? I was listening to ELO, Boston, Alan Parsons Project, Steve Martin's album, Let's Get Small, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. And then I couldn't wait, like I said, you know, when the Replacements came along, that was the greatest thing for me. I loved that band. And then everything that emanated from that area. Ramones, I know that Ramones came before them, but that was my way in to some music that really meant something to me. Oh, I love Bruce Springsteen too, very much.
That's pretty eclectic.
I was way into music. And in fact, we're right next to Metro, and I was just talking to Joe about how I bought the Wipers album there, because the guy behind the counter explained to me who the Wipers were, who Greg Ginn was, and for people who know what I'm referencing, you know how cool we both are. Me and you for knowing what that means. Wipers are very cool.
Yeah.
And they came, you know what? You know?
I've heard of them, yeah.
And they came first.
Right.
By the way, people did not see the stare that you just gave to Len when you said they came first.
Yeah.
It's a very serious topic for you, I can tell.
Well, I was a DJ at Southern Illinois University, and before that at Marquette University. And that was, I thought, was going to be my way into showbiz, entertainment, you know? I mean, it seemed reachable, a thing you could do. You just needed a mic. And, you know, I loved comedy. I loved Monty Python. That was my god as a kid. And I wanted to do sketch comedy. And it seemed like radio was a place I could do something right away. And I did at Marquette University, at Southern Illinois University. I had radio shows at both those places.
You probably were on WMUR at Marquette, and I was on WMUR.
Yes, I
at one
was.
point, so we share that in common.
Do you remember Dan Manila? Do you know Dan?
Oh, yeah. I know Dan really well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan. I will let him know to listen
doing
to this.
stuff. And yeah, Dan gave me my fun show there.
So I assume you read Bob Mayer's Replacements book the second it came out, like I did?
I did. Bob Mayer's book is amazing.
It's amazing, and it's...
And by the way, for anybody who likes to read about rock bands, please get Trouble Boys by Bob Mayer and have... it's just every tortured, anarchic, rock and roll, personality clashing disaster that you can have, and sadness, such deep sadness,
and
at the core of
beauty
it.
and everything great too, right?
Yeah. Well, obviously Bob Stinson's story is just heartbreaking.
It is, yes.
It's brutal. Not many rock and roll books have. Dee Dee Ramone's book was also hard to read for the personal revelation of it. But Bob Mayer's book, hearing Bob Stinson's story, is very hard. And it's amazing that guy could stand on 2 feet for any length of time as an adult and then made it as far as he did after what he went through as a kid. And then the fun part is just the self-sabotage.
Yeah.
The self-sabotage is just amazing.
Literally burning per diem money. Like literally just for fun, let's light some cash on fire.
But over and over. And every single time destroying everything they've built and then going, okay, we're going to do it right this time. We're going to be good boys. We really mean it. We're going to dress nice. We're going to show up at the party. We're going to make an album with a great producer, and we're going to make it sound great and the best of intentions and real drive. And this is our last chance. And it always ends in just a massive 80-car pileup.
It's true. It's true. Well, the thing about Replacements fans, and Jason, we'll move on from this. I know that you're still learning the Replacements catalog.
For a moment, I thought I was at a Marquette reunion, and I thought all of the development people from Marquette were going to crash into here and ask you both for money.
Well,
yeah.
Yes, it'll happen soon.
But Paul Westerberg, kind of the leader of the band, he once said that the people in the back who were afraid to mix it up, that he felt like he was one of them. And so you had this weird thing where you had half the audience came to see the 80-car pile up,
for sure.
And then there was maybe 30% of the audience who came to hear the music. And so you either wanted a disaster or you wanted the most transcendent show ever. Right. And it felt like you were going to get one or the other.
Well, there's a real parallel with the point of view. Do you know Tim and Eric? Mm-hmm. That's a comedy duo, and a lot of young people would know them. Yeah. And they've got a very unique style. And I asked him where that came from, and he said, it's like a Midwestern. Well, they're from Pennsylvania, I believe. It's like an embarrassment to be saying, "Hi, I'm going to put on a show for you." And so those things where they cut away to people who are not, presenting, in the middle of a presentation, whether it's a fake commercial or anything, they'll cut away. They'll do these cutaways to the other person who's not performing. And it's like, and including the slip-ups, the person's vocal slip-ups. It was all, he said, it all came from an embarrassment that it was just so egotistical, and it's just embarrassing to say, here we are, you're going to like us. And I think the Replacements was the same way. It was like they put on the clothes. I saw them at the Aragon Ballroom when they were dressing up. I don't know which tour this was. I think it was Pleased to Meet Me. Yeah, it was Pleased to Meet Me. And they decided to wear cool clothes for a tour. I'm not sure they made it through the whole tour with the clothes, but I saw one of the shows where they dressed up. And I guess they thought that, we're going to really put on a show. We're going to have a presentation. It's not going to be sloppy. And, there's just an embarrassment to I'm an entertainer. It's hard to do that when you're from the Midwest. It's hard to see yourself in that way and present yourself in that way. We're more Bill Murray types, right? Right. Bill walks around in the Cubs hat or whatever, and just the clothes he pulled out of the laundry pile, right? And that's just a Midwestern way of presenting yourself. It's hard to dress up and to say, watch out, here comes a great show. You're going to love it.
Chris Farley, he was over the top, but he really represented us.
Yeah. Well, Chris, it can go way too far, as it did with the Replacements. Yeah. Where you can't even get it together to put on even a bad show anymore because you just... there's got to be a better word than embarrassment. It's an existential shame. I shouldn't be alive. Why do we feel that way? And then you meet people from New York and LA, and they're like, "What? Yeah, you should look at me. Hell yeah, I'm cool." And you're like, "Where'd you get that?" "What do you mean? Where did I get what?" And they just don't, and you're like, I need a little bit of that in my soul so that I can get up and go out in the morning and do things. Well, I'm still proud to be from here and have that energy and attitude, because I think it saves you when the audience does go, "Yeah, we don't want to see your show." Then you're like, "Oh, I know. No, I always knew that. We've had enough of you. I know. I was waiting for this since I started." Since before I began, I was waiting for you to tell me that.
When did you first feel that?
Oh, well, I came to Chicago to do improv, and I was at Cross Currents right around the corner here. It's no longer there. That was a great club. Do you remember it?
I don't.
It was a jazz club, and it was good for theater, too. It had a low stage and probably not much bigger than this one here at the Ginger Man. It was just a warm room. There are rooms where you can get the energy going, like this room right here at Ginger Man. You can feel it, right? Because it's kind of, it's a triangle, and you just know that the performers can get the energy building in a room. And I thought Cross Currents was great. And Del Close had moved his teaching there, and he was doing a show there too. And I remember backstage, the first time I went on to improvise, thinking, I'm getting nervous. I don't know if I can do this. I'm thinking, well, if I'm going to feel that, I can't do this. I just have to stop right now, not even go out there.
Yeah.
So I either have to compartmentalize that and just say, I'm not going to feel that way, and just try to turn a blind eye to those feelings. So I don't know. I still do. It's still hard for me to dress up. They send a stylist when you do these magazines. Oh, I did the most. This was the most audacious, not Midwestern guy thing I've ever done. It's called The Rake magazine.
R-A-K-E?
R-A-K-E. And it just came out. And they said, we want you on the cover. And the theme is going to be movie star. And I'm like, all right, forget it. I said, look, I'm going to do it like an actor. You tell me what to wear and how you want me to behave, and I'll just pretend I'm playing a guy who thinks he's a movie star. And look at these pictures. I don't know if I can find it.
By the way, you are a movie star, right?
I know, but I am and I'm not. Here, look at that. Look at that cover.
Oh, wow.
There's a little Clint Eastwood.
Get out of town.
There.
Now explain it for the people listening.
There's a bow tie. There's a very severe look.
Yes.
Right? Would you describe it as severe?
Yes, severe is good. A teacher, you're in the back of the class. That's the look the teacher gives you.
It's very Paper Chase.
Okay.
A little bit.
John Houseman?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's maybe more like a nun would look at you that way. That's how I think of it.
Yeah.
Is that's like a gray suit jacket?
Yeah,
with
it's a
navy
gray
blue bow tie?
tux. Wait, there's more to it, and all the pictures I'm posing as a movie star might, and I had fun doing it. You know what I learned? David Cross and I, when we were doing Mr. Show, we used to push back so hard against all the promotional stuff. Wear this, do this, smile. You guys are comedy guys. Be comedy. Be funny. Weird, right? Like, we're getting our picture taken. Just
How dare
take
they?
a picture of us. I know. And eventually you just learn to what do you want me to wear? What hat do you want me to put on? Where do you want me to stand? I just say yes.
Right.
Just get it over with.
When did you give away the I'm compromising by doing that? Because that's where it comes from, right?
It just became exhausting. Yeah, because all of comedy is about poking holes in people who are putting on a front. And now you're being asked to put on a front, right? This is what we do as comedians, is we make fun of people who are posing with a degree of artifice and fake ego, confidence, authority. We make fun of that. So now you want me to somehow participate in that. And it's the opposite of everything I do and everything I live for and everything I'm saying. But then you just look at your watch and go, I just want to get out of here. I'll wear whatever you want. I'll stand wherever you want. By the way, I did that with this. This is years later. I've been doing these photo shoots now for 30 years, right? And now you just go, it's all right. It's just a thing out in the world. And I'll do, if you think, and you also have sympathy for the photographer, because the photographer, we're not talking about the White Sox at all. I want to hear about the White Sox.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
But the photographer's got a job to do. You idiot. Help him or her. They need to get this thing, and it has to be unique. And they took pictures last week of some other idiot, and he was standing against the bar with wearing his street clothes. So you can't do that again, or he's going to never get a job again. So just do what you're asked, you fool. You lucky fool.
Well,
someone wants to take your picture, you lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, clown. So just do what they say.
Well, okay. So
but you guys get
sure
promo shots. Listen, it's funny because I imagine myself as a kid watching someone like me and thinking, that guy thinks he's so hot. What an idiot. And I'm like, well, no, I don't. But when you do things, as many things as I've done over such a long time, you really do become aware that, like, it's just like swinging the bat. Like, here, every once in a while, you're going to knock it out of the park, but mostly you're going to whiff. And like, every time you swing, you're swinging the best swing you got. Like, people compliment me, and especially when the writers on Better Call Saul compliment me on doing a good job. Oh, you're such a good actor, Bob. You're just amazing. I can't believe what you do. And I say to them, I tried just as hard before I did this as I'm doing right now. You just gave me the words and the scenario and the character that gave me, a great place to work from. That's the only difference. The only difference is your work, not my work. My work was the same. My degree of commitment, my degree of hope and effort, and it was never different in anything I did. Go down my IMDb page. It's the same in every one. So I'm the constant in the shitty stuff. And then somehow there's a few things that are great. So when I think, again, the movie Nobody, which is playing so well and which people are liking so much, and it's making me so happy that it's done so well. I knew that I could play a part like that, or felt I could. And I also built some of the character in that movie that came from my personal life. The way the origin of it. It goes into a fantasy land, a movie, movie's realm. Which is Derek Kolstad's brain on display on the screen. But it's those guys, it's their love of film, their knowledge of what just works, what makes people smile. And when we were shooting that film, they would say, people are going to love this moment. Oh my God, this moment's going to make people laugh. This is going to make people jump out of their seat. And they were right. It's crazy. Here we are in Winnipeg in this abandoned warehouse shooting this thing, and they're like, wait till they see this. Wait till you say this line. It's gonna go great.
You're a movie star in this movie. You really are.
For the purposes of this movie, I am a movie star.
And an action star.
And an action star.
That.
Now listen, I'll take some credit for that. I trained for 2.5 years to do my own fighting.
You gave us a little hint of that last time I saw you at the ballpark. You said, this next project, it's going to be something else.
Yeah. It was a long time prepping for this because I wanted to do my own fighting because I love Jackie Chan, especially his early stuff, like Police Story is my favorite action movie. And I think the other part of it is there were certain things about my character in Better Call Saul that I thought would make the makings of an action character. Indefatigable would be the word that I would use. He doesn't quit, and he's a little devious, which is actually a good thing for an action character, to be clever and maybe even play dirty sometimes. And so those things I thought lent themselves to playing an action lead. So, but I wanted to do my own fighting because, geez, I don't think I'm that anything. Except like I can act, and I could act that character. I could continue to play the character in the fight sequence, which a lot of the action leads don't do. They get replaced by their stuntman as soon as there's any fighting on screen. And I won't name names, but just if there's a lot of cuts in the movie, then the guy isn't doing any of the fighting. So you see in our movie, Nobody, there's far fewer cuts than you're used to seeing because you're actually seeing me and you see my face and you know that's me doing it. And I thought, if I don't do that, if I don't train up and am not capable of pulling that off, then I'm not sure what I'm adding to this genre that's worth anything. There's already great actors doing it. Liam Neeson's great. Matt Damon's great. You know, there's plenty of people who are good and doing it. But if I can do that, then that could be something you could go, wow, that's different. I haven't seen that in a long time, you know? So that's what we aimed for. And I guess we pulled it off all right. And now I got to keep training.
Yeah. Yeah. So sequels coming?
I'm doomed. Well, we'll see. But people love this movie. Yeah. It's playing very well.
Well,
and also I had a great time making the action sequences. I had so much fun. And it reminded me of comedy, of sketch comedy, because it's a sequence. It's usually between 3 and 5 minutes long. And it's a lot of planning. And there's a kind of, you got to come up with things that make you smile in the middle of it. You got to turn it a little. And then there's this problem solving that you do when you do it together. And so you're there with a bunch of stunt guys and you're in the real location now. You're not in a gym. And there's always something that's not right. It's not what you planned. And now you have to change it. And you have to work together. And it was so much fun shooting those. So I look forward to getting to do that again in a movie. So we'll see. But anyway, it was this challenge too. Probably never get made. But it'll be really hard. I'll be forced to do things I've never done. And let's go. I don't have forever. Let's do something really different.
People said why, and I said why not.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting in between two people that just turned a corner in their lives.
Yeah.
To do something different. And I feel, I think you both should decide what I'm going to go do.
You know what
tomorrow.
It is? Here's the deal, Jason. It's about what kind of midlife crisis. Start planning your midlife crisis. Okay. There's the one where you indulge.
Yep. So I just go to a Golden Corral and eat a lot.
That's right. You hit the Golden Corral up, first person in line, and last person to leave. There's the one where you indulge. There's the one where you challenge yourself like Len and I have done. Think of another midlife crisis?
Well,
I think those are the two.
Yeah, those are the two. The other
go
one is
deep
a new
into-
identity, right?
Yeah.
You literally start over and you go, the last 10 or 12 years, I just would like to erase from my... That's
Well,
not going to happen to you, Jason.
I was thinking Bad Boy. I was thinking Chain Wallet.
There's the one where you turn
Studs.
state's evidence and you go on change your identity.
You've experienced that a couple of times in the television program. I do want to, you mentioned the writers and everybody on Better Call Saul. How much leeway do you have to riff?
Not much, hardly any, none.
Really?
Yeah. There are occasional moments where if you see the character, sometimes when there's this film crew where Saul Goodman, Jimmy McGill is making these commercials. He's got this, he's kind of a wannabe filmmaker. He watches a lot of movies and he has all these references to movies. And occasionally he gets to make a commercial and he loves that. And he plays director and he has a lot of ideas and he uses lingo from showbiz. And it's so much fun. Those are moments where it's pure comedy. And that's the joy of this show, is that there are scenes, 3-page scenes that are pure comedy. 3 pages later, completely earnest, emotion, deep, intense feeling. Like, who gets that? That's like, as an actor, that's just insane, a part that goes that wide ranging. So occasionally when I do the fake commercials, there's some improvising going on. Otherwise, I try to do the script to the comma, exactly as written.
Well, it's one of the best shows in the last however many decades. I mean, it's a can't miss.
Well, thanks. Yeah. And just so you know, we're in the middle of season 6, and things are burning down. It's great. And I've been waiting for this just like the audience. I've also been waiting for explosions to happen, and they're happening.
Yeah, you're a fan of the show. I mean, you're not just acting in the show. I know you love the show.
I do love the show, but I also want it. I want them to light the fuse, and they've done it. So get ready.
So please tell me, just real quick, please tell me that you saw in Naperville a Chicago sunroof.
Completely made up for the show.
Come on.
I know.
Come on.
A Chicago sunroof, folks. Please don't do this. I don't know if Sony could get sued for planting the thought.
Yeah. Bob, thanks so much. We're going to get you out to the ballpark. And
I've heard it's a nice park.
It's a great park.
Jersey looks good.
I haven't been out there since the new park happened.
Yeah, we'll get you there.
Please tell me there's a few I-beams blocking the view like the old park, just to celebrate the old Comiskey. They put up 2 or 3 randomly to make it impossible for you to see the game.
You could sit in the radio booth and my head will block your view. How's that?
That'll be the Comiskey experience.